Hello there makers, it's Jo from Minerva. Today we're going to have a look at some basic embroidery and hand stitches that you might use to enhance your clothes or maybe even start a new craft or hobby. I'll show you some basic stitches so that you can have a little practice and a few simple tools that will help you get started, and I'm going to show you at the end some really good examples of where you might use some embroidery techniques. I have to wear my glasses for close work, so you might see those popping in and out of the screen and on and off the table. I've picked out a few things to get you started. A hoop is great, not essential, but it does help you hold your work more carefully. You'll need a piece of fabric. This is just a piece of cotton, a scrap piece or a piece of pillowcase or a piece of tea towel or something to get you started. I've got some needles. Those are hand embroidery needles. Some threads, a little selection of colours. You can have a look at our colour range. I've also picked out some transfer paper, and this is quite specific to embroidery. So this is like a type of carbon paper that you can transfer a design onto the fabric yourself, so you can choose your own pattern. And some bobbins to put the threads on once I've broken the skeins. If you're using a kit, then it will probably have the design printed straight onto the fabric. But if you just want to have a go to see if you like embroidery or not, you might want to try a little piece of this carbon paper. So you put the carbon paper down, and then you can put your fabric on the top. And then if you choose a design, you can draw it out. And you will, it works like carbon paper, so you get a trace that comes through the other side. You can add as much detail as you want. So if you want to just add an outline and go with the flow when you're stitching and just stitch in as you learn new stitches, you can, or you can really mark and plan it out and think about what stitches you're going to put for each texture. And your design will be on the fabric. That's how to use the transfer paper. There's a blue piece and a white piece depending on what colour fabric you are drawing on. Once you've got your design, you can put it into the hoop. Put your fabric on top of the smallest hoop, and the hoop with the spring on, the screw, that goes over the top, and then you can pull your fabric nice and tight get a little bit of tension. When you work with embroidery threads, you don't often work with all of the layers together. There's 6 strands in a piece of embroidery thread. You can use all different sorts, but you normally use 3 strands, and you have to split the thread in half, but that thread is twisted together, so you need to hold it with your fingers in your left hand, and then with your right hand you're going to sort of slowly unravel it. You have to let it keep unraveling itself. If you just pull it, it'll go into, it'll just go into a knot, so you need to let it keep unraveling. And then you've got your 3 strands to use when you're sewing your work. Some people don't use a knot. I think if you're learning, you can put a knot in. You don't want to worry about your work coming undone. And then you're ready to sew. You could just follow the whole of this design with a straight stitch, a running stitch or a back stitch, and that would give you a sort of drawing of your design. It's quite useful if you're doing sort of Scandinavian one. If you did this with red, then you would get a red line all the way around and just outline and draw your folk birds there. That would look really great. So let me show you how to do that, and then I can show you how to use more experienced stitches where you're filling in areas with a little more skill. So let's just start with the simple one. So you're going to make a small stitch, go forward the same distance, and then backfill in. You're going to go forwards the same distance and then back to fill in, and this is called back stitch. There are a couple of different ways that you can make straight stitches, so I would like to divide up the tail feathers. So I'm going to do a straight stitch here. I'm going to I'm sorry, I've got to turn it around to be upside down for you guys. So I'm going to use a running stitch. That's the same as last time, but without going forwards and backwards. So I get a row of running stitches, and then I'm going to use those stitches to anchor some thread. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and that gives me a really smooth sort of little rope that divides the feathers. So that's a running stitch, and then you take your thread under and over and under and over. So you start off, and it doesn't matter how many you do because this is a little bit further, so I might get one more in here. So I start with a running stitch, and then I go under the running stitch, take it over, under the running stitch, take it over, under the running stitch, take it over, and that's one way of getting a straight stitch. So you can use that for stems, or for, in this case, straight lines on feathers. This next stitch is a chain stitch, and it's part of the loop family of stitches, so this will also outline. So you're going to start, make a stitch, but don't pull the thread through, put the thread around, and you will get this little loop, a link of the chain. And then you need to put your needle inside the previous loop, keep it the same distance, and then one loop will sit inside another loop. So inside the chain, thread around, making it a loop stitch, and then pull your chain. Try not to pull your chain too tight, or you'll get a sort of just a little thick double stitch. And that's a chain stitch. Once you've learned a little bit of hand stitching, you can have some fun with it. So you can either keep your work in a hoop. If you do that, you'll just need to trim the corners off your square or rectangle, and just put a running stitch all the way through and draw it up to pull the threads away from the edge. If you don't want to use it for decoration, you could use it for repairing. So these are repairs on a pair of jeans. It was wearing out there and there was a little hole, so I've covered it with a piece of fabric, and I've done some running stitch all the way around and just some straight stitches. You can also use it to sort of repeat some of the pattern. So that's a patch on the back, and there was a star print, and then I've just running stitched around it to hold it all on. So those are some of the ways that you can use just even the basic stitches, the outline stitch, the back stitch, and a chain stitch. All the products that I've used are listed below, so you can go and have a little investigate. There are some free pattern downloads as well. If you use hashtag embroidery, you will find some of those. Thanks very much for watching. See you again soon.